After school, the school beauty lured me into an empty classroom. I assumed she had something to discuss. As soon as I entered, she began to scream, accusing me of bullying her. Her domineering boyfriend rushed in and shattered my teeth. The disciplinary director repeatedly mentioned this incident during assemblies, publicly humiliating me. He even suggested that the school, in an effort to persuade the school beauty against filing a report, expected my gratitude for their handling of the situation and her leniency. I became a pariah, subjected to spitting and scorn wherever I went. Before long, my mental state deteriorated, rendering me incapable of taking the college entrance examination, forcing me to withdraw from school. Years later, I received the devastating news. The bully inherited a vast fortune, the school beauty became a wealthy matron, and the disciplinary director retired with honor. Filled with resentment, I succumbed to a fatal illness. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself inexplicably back on the day the school beauty deceived me into that classroom. This time, I had no intention of explaining. First, I would lock the door. "Xiao Chen, come in. I have something to say to you." Chunyu leaned against a desk in an abandoned classroom, her fingers playfully twirling a strand of hair as she smiled coyly. She was exceedingly beautiful, and her beguiling demeanor could undoubtedly ensnare many hearts. Yet, my heart was consumed by unrelenting hatred. I was oblivious to her true intentions. Nor did I wish to find out. Seeing me standing still, Chunyu feigned annoyance. "What are you thinking about?" I offered an innocent smile and inquired, "Chunyu, what do you want with me?" As I spoke, I strode in with the same confidence as in a previous life. This time, I deftly locked the door behind me. Chunyu, oblivious to this detail, cheerfully produced her homework notebook and sweetly inquired, "Xiao Chen, there's a problem I'm struggling with. Could you help me?" Feigning curiosity, I asked, "Why not ask in your own classroom? It's quiet here." With a playful arch of her eyebrow and a glimmer of something unspoken in her gaze, Chunyu breathed softly. "We can enjoy some privacy. No one will disturb us." I chuckled lightly, pretending to be nonchalant as I leaned closer. A smirk of triumph involuntarily appeared on Chunyu's lips. She likely believed her scheme had succeeded. However, as I approached her, she suddenly grasped my wrist tightly, exclaiming, "Xiao Chen, this problem is so difficult." Her grip was fierce, her nails nearly digging into my flesh, leaving marks upon my arm. Yet, I paid little heed to the pain, my gaze continuously scanning the surroundings. We were on the 4th floor. It was improbable that anyone could enter through the window. The back door was obstructed by a heap of discarded desks and chairs, so whether it was locked or not, I had no fear of intrusion. My reaction felt oddly out of place, instilling a sense of foreboding in Chunyu. "Does it not hurt?" she questioned, releasing her hold with a hint of skepticism. I grinned broadly. How could it hurt? I feel exhilarated all over. Compared to the agonies I endured in my past life, such trivial injuries were insignificant. She wished to leave marks on my hand as evidence of her torment at my hands. Before others arrived, she intended to touzle her hair further to enhance the illusion. However, my reaction was entirely unforeseen for her, evoking an unsettling sensation. Chunyu instinctively took 2 steps back, a flicker of guilt evident in her eyes. "Forget it. I don't want her instruction anymore. Just leave." "How can that be? Did we not agree? Today, no one can prevent me from teaching you. Not even you." As she took a step back, I advanced a step closer, cornering her against the wall. Seeing the precarious situation, Chunyu began to threaten me. "Don't come any closer, or I'll scream." "Go ahead. Let's see who can save you." I suddenly froze for a moment, realizing I resembled a villain from a film. Based on experiences from my past life, her domineering boyfriend was lurking nearby. The moment Chunyu cried out, he would rush in to rescue her, but I could not allow her to call for help. Just as she was about to scream for assistance, I swiftly seized a piece of chalk and thrust it into her mouth. Cough, cough. Chunyu choked and coughed violently. As she expelled the chalk, my large hand swiftly covered her mouth. Remembering the many misdeeds she had committed against me, I hesitated not a moment before delivering a punch. Bang! A dull thud echoed. This punch encapsulated years of my pent-up resentment. Chunyu's face turned ashen, her entire form curled up like a shrimp, huddled on the ground, and in her gaze, only profound terror remained. My emotions surged, and I incessantly questioned, "Why choose me? Why?" Her boyfriend is named Gu Mingchen. The Gu family had made a donation of 1 million to the school. Consequently, The institution turned a blind eye to the bullying perpetrated by the two of them, yet I could never comprehend why, with the personalities of Qinyu and Gu Mingchen, they would resort to such a convoluted scheme to harm me when they could have simply taken direct action. Qinyu was petrified by my demeanor, shaking her head incessantly, her words stumbling, unable to articulate a complete sentence. After all, she was merely a high school senior. With a single punch, I shattered all her pride. I was certain that Qinyu knew something, yet she was unwilling to speak the truth. This realization ignited a fiery rage within me, a feeling as if I might explode. At that moment, a sudden and urgent knocking at the door interrupted. "Open up. Get out here." It was Gu Mingchen's voice from outside. Upon hearing the commotion, Qinyu suddenly found her confidence. "Xiao Chen, if you dare to strike me, I will kill you." She picked up a pencil from the ground and lunged it towards my eyes. In a state of extreme exhilaration, my perception and reflexes peaked, and I swiftly grasped her wrist, snatching the pencil away. "Do you dare to resist?" My fury had reached its boiling point. In the next moment, Rising Sun Fist. This technique was learned from Master Yi. Fists rained down upon Qinyu's face like a relentless machine gun. "Ah!" Qinyu emitted a series of piercing screams. I aimed to strike until her cries ceased. Yet, the more I hit, the louder her wails became. Her increasing cries only served to heighten my irritation, prompting me to strike even harder. Thus, a vicious cycle was established. In a brief moment, Qinyu was left unrecognizable from the beating. Bang! Gu Mingchen kicked open the door and stormed in. I grasped Qinyu by the hair and slowly turned my head, revealing a chilling smile. "You have finally arrived." Previously, I had contemplated secretly recording the incident to present evidence to the headmaster, thereby proving my innocence. However, upon reflection, I realized that in the face of wealth, the truth often loses its significance. Even if I presented irrefutable evidence of Qinyu and Gu Mingchen bullying a classmate to the school authorities, it was unlikely that either of them would face substantial repercussions. After all, given their affluent backgrounds, education was a mere formality. Their families had already paved the way for them to study abroad. With the influence of the Gu family, should they miss this opportunity, seeking revenge in the future would become increasingly difficult. Opportunities are fleeting. Contemplating this ignited a renewed vigor within me. "Help me." Qinyu struggled to utter those two words. Gu Mingchen, steeling himself, charged at me like a rampaging bull. His physical prowess was not particularly remarkable. He typically resorted to intimidation via his family's status to silence others. As he barreled towards me, I sidestepped gracefully, causing him to crash into a nearby desk with a resounding bang, toppling several others in the process. Seizing the moment, I darted forward and delivered a swift kick to his back. Gu Mingchen winced in pain and fell to the ground. Before he could regain his footing, I struck again, landing a kick squarely on his backside. "Is this all you've got?" I uttered disdainfully while delivering a kick. Gu Mingchen and Qinyu were the very sources of my torment, and I was determined to reclaim every ounce of humiliation I had endured over the years. "Yell! Fight back!" Just as Gu Mingchen made a slight movement to rise, I stepped forward and delivered another kick. "Ah!" Gu Mingchen roared in fury, nearly driven to madness. He had never endured such a humiliating fight in his life. Yet to my eyes, he was merely a picture of impotent rage. Qinyu stood there dumbfounded, having never encountered such a situation before. Gu Mingchen grasped a nearby stool and turned, intent on striking me with it. With ease, I kicked the stool aside and slapped him across the face. Crack! The sharp sound echoed, and the classroom fell into an abrupt silence. Gu Mingchen froze momentarily before erupting in rage. "Xiao Chen, how dare you hit me? My father will not let this go." "Your father? If he dares to come, I shall deal with him as well." I sneered, dismissing his threats entirely as I unleashed another flurry of blows upon him. I would accept only two outcomes. Either he would leave me as crumpled as a folding screen, or I would reduce him to the same. The classroom once again resonated with cries of agony. At that moment, a commanding voice rang out. "Stop!" A middle-aged man rushed in from outside, pushing me aside with fury, demanding, "Why are you hitting him?" Upon seeing his face, I instinctively halted my actions. He is the director of education, Zhang Guodong. Upon noticing my cessation, Zhang adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses perched on his nose and asked condescendingly, "Which class are you from?" Gu Mingchen, covering his face, struggled to reply. "He is Xiao Chen from class 6. You are Gu Mingchen?" Zhang Guodong was taken aback, and upon confirming that the person lying on the ground was indeed Gu Mingchen, he immediately erupted in fury. "Xiao Chen, who taught you to fight?" I clenched my fists tightly as memories of my past life surged back. Every morning during assembly, he would drag me onto the stage to humiliate me. In this regard, the harm inflicted by Zhang Guodong far surpassed that of Gu Mingchen and Qin Yu. Reflecting on this, a self-deprecating smile crept across my face. I once foolishly imagined I could vindicate myself before such a person. What a ridiculous notion. Are you deaf? I'm asking you a question. Zhang Guodong, noticing my silence, intensified his tone. Where did that ferocity from earlier vanish to? With that, his hand reached towards my ear. He had a penchant for slapping the back of the head and tugging on ears, evoking a lingering sense of dread and pain that still haunts me. Zhang Guodong. I grasped his wrist firmly, forcing out 3 words through gritted teeth. At that moment, my anger had reached its zenith. I felt an inferno ignite within me, more intense than ever before. Zhang Guodong had retired at a high rank and had also allied himself with the influential Gu family. Witnessing my adversary revel in success felt more unbearable than death itself. With my return, I vowed that such a situation would never recur. As this thought crossed my mind, an inexhaustible surge of strength coursed through me. What do you intend to do? Zhang Guodong said, his bravado faltering. I warn you. The person you struck is none other than the young master of the Gu family. If you go to the Gu family now to plead for forgiveness, there may still be a chance for redemption. Otherwise, before he could finish, I could no longer bear to listen. Die! I roared, my fury unrestrained as I aimed a punch at his head. Zhang Guodong, being stout and unfit for combat, collapsed to the ground, unable to rise. Why do they all conspire against me? I shouted, unleashing the pent-up resentment of 2 lifetimes. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches. I swung my fists with reckless abandon, each strike powerful and heavy, until my muscles began to ache and my stamina waned, forcing me to slow my assault. How can you distinguish right from wrong while pretending to be a teacher? I was poised to throw another punch when I caught a glimpse of Gu Mingchen attempting to escape. Swiftly, I seized a nearby chair and hurled it in his direction. Gu Mingchen was taken aback, not anticipating that I would notice his furtive actions in such a moment. Thud! The chair struck him squarely in the back, causing him to stumble. Seizing the opportunity, I lunged forward and pinned him firmly to the ground. He is attacking. Xiao Chen is attacking. Gu Mingchen's cries for help alarmed the entire building. This was an abandoned classroom, yet it was merely a step away from others. An increasing number of students gathered around. Upon recognizing the distressed individual as Gu Mingchen, they all halted in their tracks. Who is this fool's subordinate? How dare he strike Gu Mingchen? I must admit, this is the most exhilarating news I've encountered this year. I'm fired up just watching. I wouldn't dare to strike like that even in my wildest dreams. The students had no intention of intervening. They merely stood at the doorway, spectating. As they observed, they noticed Zhang Guodong and Qin Yu. Goodness. That disfigured one is Qin Yu. And the other is the director? 3 against 1, and yet they're being counterattacked. What a disgrace. The assailant is Xiao Chen. Who would have thought? He usually seems quite docile. It appears they have pushed him to the limit. I can only say they deserve it. The more the students watched, the more entertained they became, with none retreating from the brutality unfolding before them. One among them glanced around, noting that no teachers had yet arrived, and shouted before rushing towards Zhang Guodong. Just as Zhang Guodong picked up his broken golden-rimmed glasses and put them on, he was met with the large foot approaching. Hey, big fool, what are you up to? This boy was robust in stature, yet appeared rather dim-witted, earning him the nickname Big Fool. The foot lingered in the air as he sheepishly smiled. Teacher, do you think my shoes look good? Zhang Guodong, already grievously injured, succumbed to the overwhelming pressure and fainted on the spot. In contrast, Jinyu lay there from the very beginning, exuding an air of serene tranquility. At that moment, I felt utterly exhausted, devoid of any strength to continue the struggle. My only lament was the finite nature of human endurance, as my energy had momentarily waned. "The principal is here!" came an exclamation from the crowd. The principal, flanked by security personnel, navigated through the throng and entered the classroom. Desha, in a flurry, urged me, "You must flee." The principal shot him a disapproving glance, declaring, "Arrest this accomplice as well." Desha's face fell. He had done nothing yet was branded an accomplice. "Principal, I did not strike anyone. I merely lifted my foot. Truly, I had no intention of trampling the headmaster." He attempted to clarify, only to further incriminate himself. Both Desha and I found ourselves bound and confined within a small room. The head of security inquired, "Principal, shall we contact the police?" The principal vehemently shook his head, "No, not now at least. If this matter escalates, I can forget about my position as principal. First, we must notify the Gu family. Our priority is to quell their wrath." With that, he cast a fierce glare in my direction. "Hand this young man over to the Gu family as well." I felt a surge of relief, choosing not to engage in petty disputes with him. The paramount task was to recuperate my strength and devise a means to free myself from these bindings. As I surveyed my surroundings, I noticed a small knife resting on a table and discreetly concealed it in my palm. Before long, the ambulance arrived. I leaned against the window, observing Gu Mingchen and his companions being lifted onto the ambulance, faintly hearing the murmurs of my classmates. "What a pity, the legendary warrior has fallen. I've seen pure love warriors aplenty, but this is my first encounter with a true warrior. I've wanted to do this for ages. I must admit, Xiao Chen is the bravest man in our school." My spirits lifted considerably, and I curiously asked the big fool, "Why were you so impulsive? Zhang Guodong hits you on the head every day, yet I've never seen you get angry." The big fool and I are not from the same class, but we hail from the same village. In the past, our village had 2 fools. After the big fool and I left for our studies, the village no longer had any fools. "He is someone I trust." A flicker of anger crossed the big fool's eyes as he replied, "I want to avenge our deceased classmate." "What deceased classmate?" I was somewhat perplexed. The big fool seemed to recall a terrifying memory, huddling into himself as he murmured, "One of our classmates has gone missing. The night before last, I witnessed the headmaster and another man digging a large pit on the back mountain." Upon hearing this, I was momentarily stunned. I believed myself to be quite courageous, yet their actions were far more ruthless. "Please, tell me more in detail." The big fool began to explain again. "Behind the school lies a small hill, its base alarmingly close to the school wall. The night before last, he had returned to school late and attempted to scale the wall from the back mountain, only to inadvertently stumble upon Zhang Guodong burying someone there. The big fool's thoughts are unorthodox. Fearing trouble, he fled before he could get involved." I continued to inquire, "Have you discerned who the other person is?" Desha nodded with unwavering certainty. "I have indeed seen clearly. That person is Gu Mingchen." A spark of realization illuminated my mind. It made perfect sense. Gu Mingchen, who wielded power and influence at school, exhibited a complete lack of reverence for life, making it unsurprising that he would embroil himself in such tragedy. Before long, the door swung open and a group of individuals entered. A middle-aged man queried, "Are you Xiao Chen?" Unperturbed, I nodded, "Indeed." "Have you come on behalf of the Gu family to seek vengeance against me?" "I am merely a steward, tasked with escorting you to meet the lady." As he spoke, he scrutinized me from head to toe, disdainfully remarking, "Your appearance is rather pleasing, though your demeanor leaves much to be desired. After all, you are but a bastardee, daring to contend with our young master." "What do you mean by that?" I furrowed my brow, sensing an underlying insinuation in his words. The steward refrained from elaborating further. Upon arriving at the hospital, I found Gu Mingchen ensconced in a private room, perpetually ensnared in a state of unconsciousness. By the bedside stood a middle-aged couple, their expressions grim. I recognized them from the news. The man was Gu Youfu and the woman was Chen Lian. Both were in their second marriages. When Chen Lian met Gu Youfu, she was already with child, and within 3 months of their marriage, she bore him a son, Gu Mingchen. Gu Youfu had previously experienced another marriage and was rumored to have another son. This scandalous tale was well known among the locals. It was only after a certain incident involving Gu Mingchen that I first heard the matter mentioned by some classmates. The butler, with utmost respect, announced, "Madam, the person has been brought here." "I see," Chen Lian replied, waving her hand to signal the others to leave. The butler cautiously escorted the individual away, leaving only the 4 of us in the hospital room. Chen Lian glared at me with eyes full of resentment, saying, "How dare a lowly wretch lay a hand on my son?" No sooner had she spoken than she swiftly raised her hand and struck me with a forceful slap. The impact was so fierce that blood immediately spilled from the corner of my mouth. Seeing her prepare to strike again, I did not relent this time. I retaliated with a kick aimed at her abdomen. "Ah!" Chen Lian let out a piercing scream, her body propelled like a cannonball, crashing heavily against the wall. Gu Youfu, witnessing this, hurried to support her. Yet, Chen Lian retaliated with a sharp slap to Gu Youfu's face, scolding, "Useless. You just stand there and watch, don't you?" Gu Youfu's expression was a mix of complexity and distress as he replied, "But no matter what, he is my flesh and blood, and I have wronged him over the years." Upon hearing this, I felt as though I had been struck by lightning. I finally comprehended why Gu Mingchen refrained from direct confrontation and instead resorted to elaborate schemes to ensnare me. Their intent was to orchestrate my demise in this manner. Chen Lian bellowed, "Gu Youfu, do not forget who has aided you in achieving your current success. Do you really wish to acknowledge this illegitimate child?" Gu Youfu lowered his head, a look of grievance etched on his face, resembling a mistreated wife. "Is this your justification for targeting me? You could have simply refrained from informing me. Why go to such lengths to perpetrate these vile acts?" I clenched my fists tightly, seething with unprecedented fury rather than any semblance of joy at the prospect of finding family. A cruel smile curled at the corners of Chen Lian's lips as she coldly declared, "Your existence is an affront to me. You should not reside in this world. The Gu family will belong to my son from now on." With that, she clapped her hands, summoning the butler and several others into the room. My body shook with rage. At this distance, I was confident I could trade blows on equal terms. Gu Youfu sensed the precariousness of the situation and attempted to appease, saying, "My dear wife, could we let this matter rest for my sake? The doctor has assured us that our son is not in any serious danger." Upon hearing the phrase, "not in any serious danger," a wave of regret washed over me. I had indeed been too lenient. My reprimand of Gu Mingchen had been far too brief. Chen Lian disdainfully slapped Gu Youfu's face, retorting, "Your face? What worth do you possess? Go home and kneel in punishment." Gu Youfu's expression morphed into one of utter dismay, more grotesque than if he had swallowed a fly. In the past, Chen Lian had been domineering, yet she would at least afford him some semblance of dignity in public. Now, she did not even bother to pretend. This was not an isolated incident. It was a recurring theme at home. Chen Lian incessantly boasted about her white moonlight, and, as a result, even Gu Mingchen looked down upon his father. Chen Lian turned to me once more, sneering, "If you kneel and bow your head, perhaps I might be in a good mood and grant you some semblance of dignity." Gu Youfu, noticing my hesitation, anxiously urged, "Xiao Chen, why are you still standing there? Kneel before your Aunt Chen at once. Do you wish to engage in a scuffle with all these people?" Unable to restrain myself, I inquired, "Are you the son-in-law?" Gu Youfu instinctively shook his head. If he were indeed the son-in-law, Chen Lian's domineering nature would have undoubtedly prevented Gu Mingchen from taking his father's surname. However, given that his entrepreneurial funds were provided by Chen Lian, coupled with her unique assertiveness, he had remained perpetually subservient. With a look of disdain, I remarked, "You truly are quite pathetic." Gu Youfu was provoked by my words, and in a fit of anger exclaimed, "What nonsense are you spouting? Is this how one speaks to their own father?" Just then, a voice emerged from the bed, belonging to Gu Mingchen. "Mom, it hurts so much." Qin Lian's face lit up with joy, her heart aching for her son. Oh, my precious son has finally awakened. You have caused your mother so much worry. As Gu Mingchen was about to voice his grievances, he caught sight of me and gritted his teeth, saying, Mom, you must deal with him. I want to see him cry with my own eyes. Gu Youfu quickly stepped forward to console him. Son, focus on healing first. Once you are well, we can all sit down and have a proper discussion. Gu Mingchen shot him a disdainful glance and retorted, You're not my father. Of course. You would side with this bastard. Gu Youfu was momentarily rendered speechless. Qin Lian pointed a finger at me, her voice dripping with malice. Did you not hear what my son said? Hold him down, make him cry, and then cripple him. A few burly men slowly approached me. Just as they were about to lay a hand on me, I let out a fierce shout, breaking free from my bindings and lunged towards Qin Lian. She turned pale with fright, no one anticipating my ability to escape. Protect the lady. The group, unwilling to take risks, could only shield Qin Lian. As they clustered together, the one on the hospital bed became isolated. I turned to Gu Mingchen, flashing him a wicked smile. A chill ran down his spine. The butler reacted swiftly, exclaiming, This is bad. He's coming for the young master. In the next moment, I abruptly veered towards Gu Mingchen. What are you planning to do? Gu Mingchen trembled in fear, a chilling aura of death enveloping him. Qin Lian, upon seeing the knife in my hand, dared not act rashly and instead threatened. Release my son immediately. If you harm him in any way, I will ensure you meet a fate worse than death. I regarded her as if she were a fool, then raised my arm and with a sharp crack, my palm struck Gu Mingchen's face. His visage was swathed in bandages, rendering the sound of the slap muffled. Nevertheless, I paid little heed to the sensation. My primary intent was to vent my fury. I have indeed acted. What will you do about it? My tone was exceedingly arrogant. Qin Lian loathed me to the core, yet she could only suppress her rage, unwilling to erupt. I did not cease my assault. Rather, I continued my frenzied onslaught. You wish to strike me, don't you? You plotted against me, didn't you? Memories of past humiliations replayed relentlessly in my mind. I want to see you weep. Cry for me. Under my coercion, Gu Mingchen instantly broke down in tears. Is this sufficient? Everything unfolded seamlessly. It must be said, there was no pretense, only raw emotion. I was most satisfied. Now I demand to see you smile. Give me a smile. Gu Mingchen could hardly muster a grin. Even the slightest movement of his lips tugged painfully at his injuries. Why aren't you smiling? Are you naturally incapable of joy? I raised my hand once more, causing Gu Mingchen to flinch in terror, his body quaking, and a pungent odor filled the room. Stop hitting me. If you continue, someone might die. I no longer dare. I realize my mistakes. Gu Mingchen pleaded tearfully. My emotions remained entirely unaffected. A person like Gu Mingchen could never truly comprehend his wrongs. He merely understood fear. If granted another chance, he would only descend further into depravity than he has today. Qin Lian inquired, Xiao Chen, what will it take for you to release him? Gu Youfu chimed in, Please, don't act rashly. We can offer you a substantial sum. Would 10% of our estate suffice? I shot him a disdainful glance and retorted, Is he your own flesh and blood that you protect him so fervently? Gu Youfu was rendered speechless in an instant. How could he genuinely be indifferent? For so many years, he had merely swallowed his pride. In the eyes of Qin Lian and her son, his status barely surpassed that of a household pet. I was disinclined to engage in further conversation or partake in any charade of false nobility. Everyone, move over to the wall and stand there, otherwise. Do not blame me for my lack of courtesy. Fearing a surprise attack, I herded them towards the corner. Just as they positioned themselves, a middle-aged woman entered, pushing a wheelchair. Uncle, Auntie, has Mingchen awakened? The newcomer was none other than Qin Yu. Ah! I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of joy, silently expressing my gratitude to Mother Nature for her generous gifts. There was no need to search any further. Fortune had come knocking at my door. Qin Yu's face was wrapped in bandages, and if I hadn't remembered the few teeth she had lost, I would hardly have recognized her. As for the one pushing the wheelchair, it was evidently Qin Yu's mother. Only then did Chinyu notice my presence, her heart suddenly racing with anxiety, causing her entire body to tremble involuntarily. I must say, she and Gu Mingchen are indeed a perfect pair, even their startled reactions were remarkably similar. Chinyu's mother quickly inquired, "What happened?" Chinyu, unable to meet my gaze, timidly replied, He is Xiao Chen." "What?" Chinyu's mother exclaimed in shock, then pointed at me and began to scold. "Is it you who has harmed our precious daughter like this? Are you even a man?" I chuckled softly. "Why don't you ask your precious daughter what she has been up to at school?" Chinyu's mother confidently asserted, "My daughter has told me everything. It was you, this little rogue, who sought to take advantage of her. When she resisted, you assaulted her. I assure you this matter is far from over. We will take legal action against you. Just wait for your time in prison." I raised an eyebrow, glancing at Chinyu. "Is that what you and your mother have both stated?" Chinyu's gaze flitted nervously, as she had always maintained the image of a well-behaved daughter at home. Chinyu's mother interjected, "I know my daughter well enough. Do not attempt to tarnish her reputation." My expression darkened as I retorted, "She has assaulted at least a dozen classmates in just 1 month at school. Some have been driven to expulsion, while others have succumbed to depression. Are you aware of all this? You speak nonsense." Chinyu's mother exclaimed, resembling a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "My daughter is so well-behaved and sensible. She would never do such a thing." After saying this, she turned to Chinyu and urged, "Quickly tell her that you didn't do it." Chinyu immediately raised her finger and asserted firmly, "I swear by my father's name that I have never bullied a classmate at school. Otherwise, my father's illness will never improve." I nearly faltered, "Does your father know of your filial piety?" Yet, Chinyu's mother remained resolute, declaring, "No one would jest with their parents' lives. I suggest you prepare for imprisonment." I couldn't help but smile at my own self-deprecation. Once again, I had unwittingly crossed a line by attempting to reason with them. Never mind, at this point, I have no desire to argue. I relinquished all rationality and resolved to tackle the issue in the most straightforward manner. "What do you mean?" The mother and daughter duo remained oblivious to the gravity of the situation. In truth, had they paid closer attention to Qin Lian and her companions' positions, they would have discerned numerous issues. Alas, it was far too late. Prepare to face your doom. My movements were swift as I executed a side kick directly to Chinyu's chest. "Ah!" Chinyu let out a piercing scream as she collided with her mother, both tumbling to the ground. In disbelief, Chinyu exclaimed, "You dare to strike me here?" "Just a casual act," I replied. After delivering that kick, a wave of relief washed over me. "Haha." Qin Lian suddenly burst into laughter. "Xiao Chen, I have already reported to the police. Your triumph will be short-lived." She felt helpless, for the intervention of the authorities meant she could no longer resort to her own methods of punishment. Upon hearing her words, the crowd displayed expressions of relief. Chinyu's mother scoffed, "Someone like you should have been imprisoned long ago." Qin Lian's eyes brimmed with resentment. "Once you're inside, I will ensure that someone looks after you. Please, do not lose hope while you are there." As soon as her words fell, a group of law enforcement officers rushed in from outside. So soon? Qin Lian found it hard to believe. Behind those officers, a round head popped out. It was Shah. Shah, as per our plan, I have brought them." Qin Lian then realized that these individuals were not summoned by her. Nevertheless, it made little difference. She immediately embellished the story with dramatic flair. Noticing my silence, Qin Lian felt even more triumphant, eager to witness the unfolding drama. To her surprise, the captain raised his thumb and said, "You did well, but always prioritize your safety." Qin Lian instantly grew displeased. "What do you mean by that?" "Hurry up and arrest him." Chinyu's mother chimed in anxiously. "If you don't make an arrest soon, do you believe I will file a complaint against you?" The captain turned to the two women. "And you two are?" "I am Gu Mingchen's mother." "I am Chenyu's mother." The two mothers took turns introducing themselves. The captain's expression turned serious. "Gu Mingchen and Chinyu are suspected of being involved in a significant case, and we hope you can cooperate with the investigation." "What serious case?" "I don't understand." Qin Lian was taken aback, her mind in a daze. Gu Mingchen lay silently on the hospital bed. Tears streamed down Qinyu's face as she cried, "Mom, they are framing me. They are framing me." Qinyu wept pitifully, resembling a neighborly girl wronged and suffering. Observing her daughter's distress, Qinyu's mother regained some resolve. "My daughter has never lied in her life. There must be some mistake. Is there perhaps someone at school with the same name?" The captain replied, "Our investigation relies on evidence." The body and the murder weapon found behind the school still bear the fingerprints of Gu Mingchen and Qinyu. Could this possibly be an error? With that, he produced a sealed plastic bag containing a bloodied iron rod. Upon seeing the iron rod, Gu Mingchen finally broke down, tears and snot streaming as he exclaimed, "I had no idea he was so fragile. I only tapped him lightly on the back of the head. Who knew he would die like this?" Gu Youfu, feeling frustrated, scolded, "Can you really strike someone on the back of the head with a rod?" Only then did Qinyu's mother realize something was amiss. She hurriedly turned to Qinyu, seeking an explanation. Is what they said true? Her hands trembled, and despair clouded her eyes. Qin nodded thoughtfully and then, as if a realization struck him, raised 3 fingers. "I swear, he provoked me first. I truly did not intend to harm him." Upon hearing this, Chen's mother seemed to be drained of all strength, collapsing to the ground. Gu Mingchen sobbed, "Mom, I am already 18. I want to go to prison, will I?" I shot him a disdainful glance and interjected, "Only now do you understand?" With a gasp, Gu Mingchen was so incensed that he choked and fainted on the spot. Suddenly, I recalled Zhang Guodong and inquired of the captain beside me, "Has Zhang Guodong been apprehended?" The captain glanced outside and replied, "It was an easy task." There stood Zhang Guodong, handcuffed, not far from the door. This time, he could not retire with honor. The long-awaited revenge had finally been achieved. I returned to school with renewed determination. More than ever, I aspired to emulate the protagonists in novels who were reborn, aiming for admission to Tsinghua or Peking University. If that proved unattainable, I would settle for a 985 institution. After a while, the results of the college entrance examination were released. I managed a total score of 300, leaving me in disarray. Desha scored 280, and ironically, he consoled me not to give up on life. I couldn't help but reflect on how much sharper one's mind was in the 3rd year of high school. Students at this stage possess knowledge of both the cosmos and trivial matters. Yet, not long after graduation, they forget most of what they learned. Having been reborn, the mind of a person in their 40s struggles to absorb knowledge. Achieving a score of 300 was largely due to luck. Before I knew it, September had arrived. To my utmost surprise, both Desha and I ultimately gained admission to a prestigious university. Our remarkable contributions not only earned us a medal, but also the esteemed title of Outstanding Youth, leading several universities to extend their olive branches towards us. Upon entering university, I diligently pursued my studies while simultaneously seeking opportunities for financial gain. Although amassing significant wealth proved challenging, my memories from a previous life afforded me a certain ease in earning modest sums. Years later, Desha and I returned to our hometown to establish a small enterprise. After enduring years of trials, Desha had transformed remarkably. In his spare time, he even took the initiative to inquire about the Gu family's situation. Gu Mingchen had been sentenced to death, while Qinyu was given a 10-year sentence and remained incarcerated. Initially, no one anticipated such severe penalties, however. The victim's family sought retribution rather than monetary compensation, desiring only that Gu Mingchen pay for his crime with his life. Without obtaining a letter of understanding from the victim's family, Gu Mingchen faced the maximum sentence. Chen Lian found herself in a desperate situation, resorting to bribery. Her previously erratic behavior had alienated many, leaving her with numerous enemies and no escape route. Once Gu Mingchen's troubles surfaced, the adversaries of the Gu family revealed themselves in full force. Ultimately, not only did she fail to save Gu Mingchen, but several judges were also implicated in the scandal. On the day Gu Mingchen was executed, Chen Lian, unable to bear the shock, succumbed to madness, incoherently shouting that she would seek help abroad from her white moonlight. Gu Youfu, who had lived a life of submission, finally found his resolve and expelled Chen Lian from his life. Yet, the enemies of the Gu family remained undeterred by these developments. They continued to relentlessly pursue the Gu family, and before long, Gu Youfu faced bankruptcy. Desha remarked. I heard he has returned to his rural hometown, spending his days either farming or fishing. Aren't you going to pay him a visit? I shook my head, replying, there is no need for that.